Excellent. Hello, everybody. My name is Megan Grime, and I am the new chair of the Scottish Secular Society. And welcome. Thank you for coming. And welcome to everybody who's watching live online from wherever you are. We thank you to the Glasgow Theosophical Society for giving us this building yet again to host another event here. Tonight is a very, very special talk. We have Haifa and her husband Amri, who are here. They are nationals from Saudi Arabia. They came over on a student visa for medical school, and then everything went in an unexpected direction, and then went unexpected direction again, and they find themselves now seeking asylum here in the UK. And I don't want to say too much. This is Haifa's story, and I want her to let you know. She tells it better than anybody possibly could. The other thing is, for online, we'll have a Q&A. Haifa's agreed that she would love to answer any of your questions. This is a great time. You get to see the face of what Saudi Arabia is doing and producing and causing, and what our lovely immigrants like me and her and we have somebody here, are doing in this country, and then as well what it means to be seeking asylum in this country. You know, we hear it in the media, and we hear more of this faceless generalization. This is the face. This is the story. And so along with our Q&A, you can ask for people who are not here, or if you don't want to ask yourself, you can tweet at our it's at SEC Secular SOC. So what is it? Is it? There it is. Scott SCOT Secular SOC, and you can use the hashtag Saudi Fear, which our Democracy live streaming friends have started. So that's hashtag Saudi Fear, and you can ask a question for Haifa, and we'll read it out, and she'll be happy to answer it for you. So without further ado, our guest speaker.
First of all, I would like to thank the Scottish Secular Society, represented by its chair, Megan, for organizing this talk. And I'd like to thank everybody who's come today to support us. It's a mysterious thing, the loss of faith, as mysterious as the faith itself. George Orwell. That evening, I successfully rejected the idea of the validity of Islam as the true path in my life. When Amri, my husband, showed me a YouTube video on how the Jews perform their prayers. It was a shocking moment. I got it. Islam as a religion resembles other religions as simple as this. So there is nothing supernatural about it. That day was a revolutionary day. I abandoned the Quran, and I completely stopped praying. Let me tell you about the old me, the devout Haifa. I was brought up in a conservative environment. My family was considered moderate. They were not very religious in their day, as they used to have a satellite TV at home, which meant I had access to a variety of international channels. I spent my childhood as normal amongst my family, and life carried on as usual. At 15, the family moved out to another area with a different ambience, an ultra-conservative environment. The people in the neighborhood where our new home located forced my father not to install the satellite dish on the rooftop. It was considered a sin. A sin to have channels, except, of course, the two Saudi official channels that promote Wahhabi tenets. Therefore, I began to change. I became very strict, and with the help of my new friends at school, there was a transformation in my character, in my personality. I believed it was an enlightenment. I worked very hard to memorize the Quran. Many verses of the Quran contained a direct and indirect indication to use violence and deeply misogynist attitudes. At the time, I came to understand that the great mental effort to memorize them was going to be for the sake of God. That God lived within me a great deal of my lifetime. Literally, I was haunted by him. I was haunted by the literal truth of the Quran and the eternal punishment. As a result of this horror, I became to be known with my strict beliefs, which were praised and encouraged to have, as they were considered a high level of faith, and they are still promoted. My brother insisted to install the satellite TV after a while, and indeed they managed to do so. However, my strict religious behaviors developed. I didn't like it. I didn't want a satellite TV at home. So I started to spend my time in a solitary, praying, memorizing the Quran, reading the Hadith, and studying for my school. I remember that I prayed a lot, more than normal. I genuinely cried in my prayers to be accepted at night. I fasted a lot, and there came a period throughout my adolescence to fast every other day, as that this is the perfect way to fast according to the Hadith. At high school, I was popular in preparing Islamic seminars, preaching Wahhabism, and advising the rebellious girls to repent. In fact, the political Wahhabi doctrine is nurtured and inculcated at early stages of childhood in state schools. This kind of education is still taught, in addition to mosques, where the Quranic lessons and seminars preaching jihadism take place. The aim to believe in jihad is to serve the long-term purposes. They inculcated its significance in people's brains, and when it is needed, it's just activated. So when it comes to jihad, I truly talk to myself that I would go for jihad sometime, because the martyrdom for the faith is one of the fastest ways to enter the paradise. It felt so real. It really did. Wahhabism is there, in the air. And of course, with the great help of media, television, radio, newspapers, and social media, the government shapes the mentality of the people in Saudi Arabia. And it tries its hardest to spread it worldwide, directly and indirectly. When I look at it now, all these means contribute to build a radical personality, which is very dangerous to have in a society. But the truth is, I didn't know. I didn't know. My critical thinking wasn't enhanced, or in another word, was deliberately deactivated. My mindset was totally controlled to blindly accept what was given without questioning. Basically, I was a victim of fear and horror that are promoted day and night and sponsored by the government. And there was a pang of remorse resulted if I didn't pray properly, or if I happened to accidentally hear music, which is forbidden. In my society I lived within, it was 100 of the people who believed the way we lived was the true way of life. it was very impossible not to join. There was no space or time to think for myself, to think of the validity or morality of many things in my belief. No room to critically think about the contradictions I had been experiencing, which were obvious to see, but just I needed to open my eyes. And before that, I desperately needed to open up my mind's doors. At the time, my consciousness was unconscious. Indeed, Wahhabi ideology that oppresses people is enforced by the authority, and by the use of scare tactics, they force you to believe it is the true and the only way to a normal life. They shape your mentality to just think about what is going to happen to you after life. Every moment, in every minute, in every day, you feel that fear from the hell takes you to the certainty of its existence. My life was guided by fear and inspired by ignorance. And this strategy still works with many others. So how I ended up to be a big fan of Bertrand Russell, whose principles and views contribute to build a new understanding of life on the basis of evidence, science, and knowledge. At the age of 19, I was told that Amri's family proposed to deliver me to their son. Amri, I didn't know him personally, but I heard he's a good guy, and he's a mathematics teacher. I agreed to marry him, despite the fact I did prefer Mutawa, a very strict person like I was. Amri is a different person. He's a rebellious son, and he didn't pray at the mosque or show his religious attitudes to his people. He was considered a shocking in his day on account of his advanced views in religion and politics. Amri spent almost his childhood amongst the doves and pigeons. He loved them. He started with one dove and ended up with more than 100. While I was in a solitary to practice my faith, Amri in a solitary with birds on the rooftop of the family's house. That consequently gave him abundant leisure to reflect on politics and theology. These moments of reflections developed his understanding towards the conception of religion in Saudi Arabia and its close association with the authority. Indeed, he was exceptional in a society, like Raif Badawi said. The whole society is forced into one singular line of thinking and one simple philosophy under the ruling regime. This line of thinking trusts that everything it believes is that shiny truth. While I was practicing my religious beliefs, Amri, on the other hand, rejected them. He refused to accept the ideology which prevailed amongst his people. A society that was forced to blindly accept a body of ideas which were unquestionable taboos. Amri's enlightenment completely differed from mine. He spent his days at the family's house supporting his sister's rights of education. He managed to buy a computer from his allowance in order to allow his siblings to learn more, and eventually brought the internet to help them expand their mindsets. He used to have debates with his father about the relationship between the religious authority and the government, on the way they control people and manipulate them. Amri was dreaming to study politics. However, at the university he was told these studies were not for ordinary people. If he had someone to pull strings in order to get into the school of politics, he should ask them for help. Amri chose mathematics instead. His great pleasure. It's the language of truth, as he always says. His attitudes, however, were unacceptable and inappropriate in politics, religion, and his lifestyle too. So in order to tackle these issues, he needed to change. He needed a religious woman to convert the infidel. The marriage was an attempt to convert the rebellious son. Indeed, Amri accepted me despite my narrow-minded views. He used to say, if I had something I believe was right, I can convince him with logic, not by force. I couldn't dictate what was inculcated in my mind to him. We had countless discussions and debates at home about Islamic stories and historical events, analyzing their rightness, morality, and intrinsic values, as some are difficult to believe and others are unethical to accept to believe in. I began to change because I started to critically think. Truly, I started to enjoy the discussions. I was hurt and able to voice my opinions. I was able to speak out the rational voice inside my head that encourages me to question and analyze the reality I had been living. With Amri, there was a different world. A world which was our home in Saudi Arabia, where we could discuss anything, anytime, no boundary lines. It was indeed what was meant by the freedom of speech. With Amri, I couldn't wait to trip the mind fantastic. He changed my attitudes towards life with logic and love throughout the years. And that moment, in that evening, was the point when I said, enough is enough. Enough to favor the comfortable myths over the facts. Amri was an excellent and passionate mathematician. Teaching high school students, we together produced handbooks in order to facilitate the math curriculum and to make it enjoyable too. The students loved and enjoyed them. They started to change their attitudes towards math. Our goal from that was to make the students think differently about the philosophy and the facts behind the numbers and equations, as we do with our children. Exactly like Bertrand Russell said, I should make it my object to teach thinking, not orthodoxy or heterodoxy, and I should absolutely never sacrifice the intellect to the fancied interests of morals. Amri also worked very hard in order to develop a new educational system at school. It was a challenge, but he really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, Amri was forced to transfer from one school to another because he failed to show his Islamic beliefs in public, persecuted even by the educated society. But he carried on his career as he loved. Amri's ambition didn't stop at teaching. He wanted to fulfill more. So he applied at the Educational Ministry in order to get a scholarship to complete his postgraduate overseas. He was interviewed and successfully passed, waiting for the application to proceed. At the time, during the Arab Spring and its revolutions, Amri expressed his views to his colleagues about the promises and the positive changes the Arab Spring might bring to Saudi Arabia. Afterwards, and out of the blue, his salary was suspended for 3 months. And then he was sacked without any justifications. His dream to study abroad was over because his job was over. What a harrowing experience. After years of contributions and hard work, he was fired. We didn't know what to do. Amri's dream was crushed. I knew how important it was for him. I could do nothing but support. We were devastated, but we must find a way. I forgot that I got excellent high school qualifications. I forgot. So Amri reminded me, encouraged me, and fully supported me to think about our family's future very seriously. I felt dizzy, trembled, and then I felt sick for a while, as it seemed to me there would be a very challenging life ahead. But I was ready somehow. I needed a push. Amri was the only one who changed my attitudes toward my own life, so I would the impossible to support. So what was the major I wanted to study abroad? Specifically in the UK. At the time, I did think of two things: medicine or cooking. Yes, this is what I wanted to study, I said. But my priority would be sure for medicine, as it is my dream. At the time, it was very difficult to find an offer at the medical university, so I applied for a culinary art management at the University of West London, imagining that once I finished my studies, I would be able to open an organics restaurant somewhere. I set a plan to get English qualifications, but Amri said, it has to be in 10 weeks. I said, are you serious? I cannot speak. I cannot do it. All I knew was my basic English grammar at high school, and this has been for a long time. It was an imperative necessity to do so. There was no option but this. So I must do it for my family. Indeed, I needed to meet the deadline, the English test. Without a soul knowing what we had been doing, I studied at home, practicing reading, listening, writing, speaking, all at home. And that day had come, the exam day. The exam was on Cambridge University standards. Oh, it was intense. I managed to get the required English qualification exactly as I planned, and I obtained the university offer too. We couldn't apply for the visas within our country, fearing that if the authority found out what we had been planning, they would prevent us, or they might arrest Amri. So we escaped to Egypt. Amri somehow knew about Egypt, as he went during the Arab Spring, so we could enter it without a visa. We spent a while in Egypt in order to get British visas. Indeed, we managed to obtain them. And we were supposed to stay there until we would be able to travel to the UK according to the visa entry date. Out of the blue, the Egyptian military stated a coup over the elected president. We witnessed people protesting in the streets, and an emergency state was declared. It was definitely unsafe for us to stay there, so we fled Egypt to Morocco. There we spent 1 month, and then we traveled to the UK at last in August 2013. When we arrived in the UK, we had savings on our bank accounts, but no income. So we needed a sustainable income. So I applied at the Saudi embassy to get a scholarship, as all self-funded students do once they arrive in the UK. But I was rejected. I was refused to get the scholarship unless I meet the conditions and the terms, which were not applied on my classmates at the university at the time. And indeed, I successfully met them. And because my position in the UK was much stronger than to be in Saudi Arabia, I successfully secured a government-sponsored scholarship after a while. I managed to change my major to medicine after successfully completing my A-levels, as the Home Office suspended the University of West London from issuing international visas. So we moved out to Preston City in Lancashire. The Saudi government funded the pre-medical course at the University of Central Lancashire. And during the second semester of it, I was instructed not to continue with the University of Central Lancashire. I was confused, shocked, and angry. An academic year to be lost just like that? All because the educational department at the embassy did not investigate that the course was not complied to the current system, according to the paragraph 7 in its regulations and terms. And therefore, they asked me to fail in the exam in order to retake another course within another university in accordance with the system. At the time, my dream to study medicine became a nightmare. How on earth and what on earth was I going to do? It was impossible to find another medical university in the UK within a short period of time. So I was instructed to apply at the University of Glasgow for a pre-medical course. And as the embassy has a mutual agreement with the University of Glasgow for a medical degree, I successfully obtained an unconditional offer from the university based on an interview and a higher English qualification. The embassy proceeded my application at the University of Glasgow afterwards. Meanwhile, we had very hard times dealing with the Saudi government. Amri was electronically elected via elections held online to be the chair of the Saudi Students Club in Preston City. Amri's duty was to assess Saudi students and their academic issues. He was instructed to continue efforts started by his Saudi predecessor of converting a local church into a Wahhabi mosque. They wanted Amri to complete the purchase. He was also asked to stand up every Friday prayer to call for donations from the local Muslims in order to support activities held in the mosque. Amri felt uncomfortable, and therefore he informed the government about these suspicious behaviors. Surprisingly, they responded just to follow the current system. Amri realized that he had to end his duty, as this wasn't what he was supposed to do, to be used and manipulated in order to achieve interior motives. Within 1 month, he resigned and his resignation was officially accepted. After the resignation, money began to appear in his British bank account without his consent or prior knowledge. The money was transferred by the Saudi embassy in London. Amri is concerned about the money laundering issues related to terrorism, as the money might be used to train or equip jihadists in the UK. With the use of Wahhabi ideology, this money might be used to drive terrorism in the UK. Amri indeed made a stance. He didn't submit to their orders to do what they wanted. Instead, he requested an official statement from the embassy to clarify why the money was deposited into his bank account. Amri was trying to safeguard himself not to breach the law in the UK. Therefore, the government started to abuse us as a family by using their totalitarian methods. They gradually began to oppress us, step by step. They began by freezing my home bank account, which we used to have money into. So I couldn't access to it anymore. And when I phoned the bank to unfreeze it, I was asked to come back home to sort it out. Then they suspended the monthly allowances my children and myself should receive according to the scholarship agreement. And Amri was told that the embassy would take their money back by deducting it from my scholarship. Besides, he received phone messages that if he didn't listen to them, my scholarship would be affected as a result. 2 Saudi nationals were sent to our home's doorsteps in Preston, shouting threats that they would take revenge. My children witnessed the incident. They felt insecure, haunted, that those 2 people might come any time to attack us. They were haunted by every single sound they heard at night. And there was no way to calm them down but to sleep with them in their room. Could you imagine that feeling of horror every night you go to bed? You don't know whether you wake up in the morning or not. Feeling unsafe, uncertain. After a while, he was invited to travel to London to discuss this matter at the embassy. And there, Saudi officials threatened and blackmailed him that they would sue him back home. Amri had been asking for an official statement. What are they concerned about? He's wondering. Is issuing this letter a real issue for them? Finally, after these attempts failed to discipline him, the Saudi authority refused to pay the tuition fees to the University of Glasgow, despite the fact that they confirmed the scholarship prior the commencement of the course. They even provided me with an official letter to confirm the scholarship to the Home Office in order to obtain the visas. They cancelled the scholarship because it is the only way and the shortest way to get Amri back to Saudi Arabia to punish him. So this is it. This is our experience as Saudi citizens under the repressive system. Manipulation, abuse, and with the use of scare tactics, they impose what they want on their citizens. Thank you very much.
Would you like to take some questions now?
I feel like.
Yes.
Thank you everybody for listening.
I'm speechless. So hopefully some of you aren't so speechless. We'll open the floor to questions and I'll just call on you. So, right.
You mentioned your family, your children here with you now?
Yes, my husband,
Yes,
2 children, yeah.
And you're happy?
Of course we are, but you know, that feeling, were you waiting for a decision to come out, so just concerned. But actually we're safe, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Are there any more decisions you need to have accepted?
Sorry?
Can you be here as long as you want? Or do you have to still wait authority from other powers?
Yeah, we've got the British, actually we claimed asylum so far, yeah, a political asylum. So we are waiting for the interview to come out for my husband. We don't know.
When did you apply for asylum?
It was the 1st February this year.
And that's when your local MP?
Yeah.
Yes, Patrick Grady?
Great, yeah.
Yes, and I don't want to step in, but I think the story was they got their local MP to represent them at the Home Office, which is a big deal. Need that, and then it was you'll hear from us in 2 weeks, and that was February.
Yes.
Yes, and the problem with being asylum seeking is you lose your right to almost anything. Really, they can't work. Like on a student visa, you can at least work for a while.
Right.
You're unable to do that. So, one second. Did you have a question?
Yes, I'm very interested that the Saudi government gave you this scholarship even though they knew, or perhaps there are two different branches, I don't know, even though they knew of Amin's unorthodox attitude towards Islam. So I'm wondering, was this a bureaucratic model on their part, or were they so desperate to have more women training as doctors, or was it an attempt to bring Amin back into the fold, to bribe and blackmail him
Yeah,
fall into line?
for me, I would. This is the last one was just to punish him. Education for women in Saudi Arabia is not really an issue for the authority. It's not really the attitudes. I mean, the attitudes towards women. Just the education for women is inconsiderable. Anyway, it's not important for just imposing their ideology. This is the most important for them.
You mentioned the Saudi government would want to punish Amri when they brought him back. Do you have any idea what kind of thing they would try and do?
Of course, they will arrest him, and we don't really know. You know, when people like Raif Badawi in prison now, as unfortunately we don't really know what he's experiencing right now, but because they want to persecute people sometimes by using fear and horror, just not to think, even if you are going to think about it, you cannot imagine that mental torturing. I heard some experience, very, very harrowing, that they use the mental torturing methods just to brainwash them.
You were talking at the start about your how you becoming slightly more a hardcore believer when you were growing up. Can you tell us some of the other techniques that they were using to that? What forced you maybe, because you're getting different from your brother who wanted a satellite television. What were they doing to encourage you to think in that way?
At the school, I have very excellent friends. That's why I had excellent qualifications. They encouraged me. In the same time, spontaneously, they encouraged me to have that religious attitudes. So we together memorized the Quran and preparing the seminars, Islamic seminars at school. So yes, the influence of the environment. That's why secular education is so important, that it must be stopped in order to just let children think for themselves, rather than to just feed them the ideology that you want, or the religious authority wants from children. That's why my concern that the environment is a very important. I was in like a moderate family, then they traveled to another area which with a different environment, very ultra conservative environment. So they forced. Sometimes when you see people just psychologically, if you are not strong enough, you will join to them just like this, because they are majority and you are one. This is it. If you are not educated well enough.
Yeah, so would you say the school was more influential in reading that than say a family?
Yeah, of course.
It comes from the schools.
Yeah, it is from the schools, because the government prepares the curriculum. So it is there. The Wahhabi ideology is there in the curriculum, even though if they are going to teach you evolution theory, you will just find the teacher telling you that evolution theory is not right. So they tell they teach you about the evolution. This is their biology of every day today. But in the same time, the same class, they just contradict. So just they stopped you from thinking, from critically think. This is. When I talk about every single people. I mean, every single person, child, adult, women or men. This is the life in there. I experienced this, and fortunately, I am lucky. I am lucky. I have my husband. He influenced me because he's a mathematician, and he always prefers the facts over the things or the morals. We have facts. Yeah.
Yes.
You are very fortunate both to have escaped that kind of system mentally, and to also be here and be relatively safe from the regime. I'm aware that the atheism and free thinking is still on the rise in Saudi Arabia, even though it's criminalised.
Yes.
Are you aware of any grassroots? I mean, I'm sure they're not that open, but are you aware of grassroots groups in Saudi Arabia, and do you do what you can in whatever way to kind of advocate for them? And do you know other political prisoners other than Raif Badawi?
You mean personally?
Yeah. Or just...
Actually, I had, for now, I have my Twitter account, just like...
Yeah.
And my husband as well. He's really concerned about this. Really concerned about raising awareness amongst Saudi youths about the relationship between the religious authority and the government and the way they control.
People coming forward to you saying, I can't speak out, and I'm so glad that you are speaking.
Yeah, I was sent some messages as well that they are inspired. I hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they are. I hope.
Yeah.
Look, it's a really. I hope that they could now speak out their minds.
Yeah.
They have the. Of course, I understand. Really, I understand their position now. It's not really safe for them to say it publicly, because the government says just to be an atheist is keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
But when you say in public, this is a very, very serious issue.
Another question. Any of your family, both your families that are still in your homeland, right? Are they under pressure as well?
We don't really contact them right now because it's for their safety. We don't really want to put them at risk at all. Those are our families.
Yes.
But the government might use their totalitarian methods to control them or to do something. We don't really know what's happening behind the scenes.
But nothing's happened so far. They haven't contacted, say, with your mum and dad in prison or anything.
We don't have contacts. Yeah.
The government hasn't done this.
Maybe it's done its own
Haven't
anyway.
contacted you,
Who?
the government.
No.
No.
I do have a question. There was something that, a number of things. When we first met and you told me your story for the first time, there were a number of things that just shocked me, just blew me out of the water. And one of them was how Amri got elected or even known for this student position. But he wasn't a student.
Yeah.
He wasn't involved in any way. He was contacted. He was elected, even though nobody knew who he was. And is that correct?
Yes, it's elections held online. So just he put his name. It just even they didn't know, the embassy didn't know who he is. Anyway, it's a name from because he's my companion. I must had my scholarship if my companion or my guardian with me. If I don't have a guardian, I don't have a scholarship anyway. Which is male guardian, I mean. Crazy, isn't it?
Anybody have any questions? Oh,
Yeah, just to ask, what would you now like to happen? You know, how would you like things to unfold for you in Glasgow or wherever you would like to be?
Of course, it's really hardship. It's really difficult. Just wait for the unknown to come out. Just waiting for it, for the unknown, even if it's not what we want. But we want it to come, we want it to show up, even with the promising, signs we want. But what we have to do now is just wait patiently.
Is there anyone here who can influence on your behalf, other than the MP?
We've had a lawyer as well, and he's doing great as well.
Unfortunately, their hands are tied a lot.
Yeah.
The law. I mean, you guys were, strangely enough, you were offered the usual, which is you can go to a detention center and wait, or you can stay where you are and apply for a monthly stipend, correct? And you applied for the monthly stipend?
No.
No, you didn't. Okay, I couldn't remember. But yes, there's this idea of they're not humans. They don't have emotions. They can just be picked up and dropped somewhere else. Who cares if their kids have to be taken out of school? It's a very difficult thing, which you're handling very well, considering. Yes, there was another question.
Yeah. How widespread is this in between the different, obviously there's like Saudi students in quite a lot of universities. I take it this is happening pretty much everywhere where there's Saudi students in this country or any country for that matter. So if there's a group of Saudi students, I take it somebody will be under some sort of pressure to be advancing this.
We don't really know. This is what we have. This is our experience. So I wouldn't be diverted because just like everyone, I don't want to as well affect Saudi's students as well. I don't know.
Can I ask, did you report the intimidation you spoke about? Did you report that to
We
the
reported,
police?
yeah. No, I mean here, no.
You didn't?
No.
But you've informed Patrick Grady about that?
Yes, I don't know. Have we informed Patrick about this? I think yes. They know everything about us. They know about it.
You know, we have legal systems in this country. People intimidate you. It doesn't matter where you're from. You know, it doesn't matter whether you have any residential rights here. If you're intimidated here, you can still go to our legal authorities. That's an important part of your case for asylum, I would suggest.
But the thing is, in the scholarship agreement, there are conditions I have to follow. I mustn't report any Saudi officials to the British authority anyway, or my scholarship would be affected or just cancelled.
Right.
So this is the conditions and the terms in the current system.
You could go to the police and say that. You know, you can go to the police and say, look, I'm not supposed to do this, and I just go back to my country, it could be damaging for me, but these people threaten me.
Because Ami reported this case to the Saudi authority.
Was it the Saudi?
Yeah, but they didn't really care.
Yeah, you would have to be careful who you report it to. However, you know, we have an organisation called CID and we have another one called Police Intelligence. Because of the problem with radicalisation, Police Intelligence do a lot of work in that area. So I can speak to some of it.
Thank you. So I have one more, but I'm waiting to see if nobody has any questions. No, I think what I found quite shocking, and I think many of us just don't quite understand what it means to go from one identity to another, is when you said, obviously the identity started with when you were learning English and before that reevaluating your religious perspectives, but I think you said it was when you hit the UK, it was when you said you took off much of your religious clothing and you had to learn to look at men?
Yeah, it was an issue for me to make eye contact with men. So I went after the university. I spent 2 weeks in the university. Then I went home back and told Ami, please take it over. I wouldn't want study because I cannot make eye contact with men. So Ami said, do you have to go? But just to spend 2 months. and do not talk to me within these 2 months. After this, you can't talk to me. Then I have never talked to him about it.
All right, any other questions? Yes.
Do you ever feel any of your old characteristics sneaking back in? Like, because you were brainwashed from such a young age, do you ever feel it coming back into things that you do? Or things that you tell your children? Or
For me now, recalling these memories is very painful, to be honest, because it's a very long period. But just like I deleted them because I think differently now. So yes, sometimes I just like remembering them. It's just kind of, I have to cut it. I don't want to think about it now. Just ignore it. So this is the way I dealt with it. So yes, it is sometimes, but when I have facts, I educate myself. So when I have facts, I would never sacrifice the facts over the religious beliefs anyway.
Well, we're right on time, and I'm sure you're exhausted from such a story.
Yeah, there is someone from Australia. She's a girl she's 17 years old, and she's the first one believed in our story. So I would like really to take the opportunity to thank her very much, and she must be very proud of herself, really. And we have contacts. She sends gifts for the children from time to time.
That's lovely. All right. Well, it is. It's through a series of conversations with people who cared that I even got to meet Haifa and Amri and their children. And it's really important. Keep the dialogue up. Keep awareness. Find our help. Find everything we can to help each other out. It is the essence of human rights. If you believe in them, you believe in all of us and what's right for all of us. So, final words. Tonight, usually we take donations at the door. We're a nonprofit organization. Some people have paid their memberships. Any and all contributions that are made tonight, regardless of what they come in as, donations, membership, or otherwise, are going to the family, because one thing we hear about and then one thing we don't hear about. We hear about asylum seeking. Well, there's the technical home office, find somebody, all these services are supplied for you. What we don't hear about is that they have to eat every day, and they're not allowed to earn money when you're seeking asylum, and it's very difficult. And as Haifa has so accurately said, it is a mental Olympics, just sitting and waiting and not knowing. So everything's going to them tonight to help them on their way, and man, everything we can do for you.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for the Scottish Secular Society for organizing this talk. And I really thank Gary Otten, who's introduced me to you. And thank you very much indeed for the first article you wrote about our story. Your article is so popular in Saudi Arabia now.
All right. Well, round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you. So good. All right. I've got water. So I'm going to go around and give people papers and information.
Okay.